last couple days I have, no, in the last really 27 hours or something, I've fallen in love with Vince and Sergio and the rest of the crew. And when I look around, I don't see that gives me very much optimism. And the conversations with your whole group the last couple days have, I'm certainly not going to call it optimism, but it's really encounter young people who are so committed and have not only direct personal experience of what it means to have direct experience of the costs of empire, but who at the same time can throw out the names of all sorts of theorists that I don't have any idea who the fuck they're talking about. Yeah, they were throwing out all sorts of names yesterday, and because I'm a writer and because I'm supposed to know this shit, they're like, what do you think of blah blah? And I'm like, yeah, their first book was really good, and then their fourth book was passable, and and let's change the subject. Anyway, so I've been thoroughly impressed. And if there is to be a serious resistance movement, I think that my perspective on the possibility of a serious resistance movement in this country has moved from the odds being about 1 in 10,000 to 1 in 7,500, which is good. That's good for one day. So if we could just do this every day, pretty soon we'd be at 1 in 1,000. Okay, so I would like to thank all of you for coming out, and then I would also like to thank the Purdue North Central Veterans Club, and I would like to thank Mark and Linda and Diana and John and Sergio. And just because I'm going to be a jerk, like 3 times I asked Vince to write down his name, and he refused. So I would also like to thank Vince. I think we should all just applaud him to bug the shit out of him. I'd like to thank the Library Service Center. I would like to thank Celeste, Veterans Unplugged Radio, Matt, Johnny, Rick, and I would like to also put out again the plea for donations. And I'm sorry, did you say that Derrick was going to give a shoe? When you were talking about we're all going to give donations, or you asked for donations and you said, I think Derrick's going to give a shoe? Oh, a shout out. I was like, yeah. No, I could if I was home, but I don't. The only people who can ask for my shoes when I'm on the road are TSA people. So anyway, before we actually start with what we're doing, how many people have heard my endgame talk? This is about half. Because Vince asked me specifically to do the endgame talk, and were it not for the existence of YouTube, I would be delighted to do so. Because I always get kind of jealous of musicians because, 40-some years later, Led Zeppelin can still play Stairway to Heaven and everybody gets all excited, but it's like, oh, fuck, the endgame talk again. God damn it. Anyway, it's really hard because, and Vince and I talked about this some, that well, what we're going to do is we're going to do the endgame talk, And then after that, we'll do Q&A. So those of you who are like, oh shit, the endgame talk, go ahead, get out a book, go to sleep, take a walk. And part of the reason for this is that I think our discourse is absurd enough that we need to cover this ground, and we need to keep covering it, because when you have environmentalists claiming that windmills are sustainable, or, I mean, it's like we got to keep going back to ground zero, or keep going back to first principles, because obviously there's some stuff we're not getting. Okay, so having said that, the endgame talk itself is a little over 2 hours, so we'll do that, and then we'll take a couple minutes off, and then we'll come back for Q&A. And it's like, holy shit, 2 fucking hours. But okay, so I don't know if you know this, but the first draft of the movie Star Wars was actually not written by George Lucas and company. The first draft of the movie Star Wars was written by environmentalists, and it was quite a bit different than the way the movie eventually turned out. And is there anybody in here who does not know the plot of Star Wars? One? Are you scratching your head, or are you sort of embarrassedly? Okay. So there's one person who doesn't know. Usually it's, yeah, and she's looking around like, I'm so embarrassed. It's always the same. It's like, oh, that's great. Oh, now you're scratching your head, though. It's like, no, I wasn't raising my hand. I just wrote an essay not very long ago. God, the endgame talk's going to be 3 hours now because I'm rambling all over. But I just wrote an essay maybe a couple months ago about, I've been saying for years that we don't live in a democracy. And, I mean, it's pretty clear. I mean, and you just ask, it's like, how many people in here believe that we live in a democracy? Bunch of fucking communists. It's like, it's pretty extraordinary that, the world's greatest democracy and nobody, I mean, it's not just radicals or anything. I mean, seriously, if you ask people okay, I'll take a dare right now. I will ask somebody on the plane tomorrow, the person I'm sitting next to, I will ask them, I do this all the time, I will ask them, do you believe that the government takes better care of human beings or corporations? I will ask that question tomorrow. And I guarantee that they will say it takes better care of corporations. But I just wrote an essay saying that I actually do believe that we live in a form of democracy. And the thing that convinces me we live in a form of democracy is tigers. And what I mean by that is not actually living, breathing tigers. What I mean by that are the Louisiana State University Tigers football team. Because at last year's college BCS championship game, there were about 70,000 people went to the football game, and they paid an average of $1,500 apiece. And there were 14 million people who watched this game on television. And how many people do you think would show up at the Superdome to pay $1,500 to protect real tigers? 1? 0? The same with the fucking Detroit Tigers, It's like, there are more people. I love sports, but it drives me fucking nuts that you can turn on. So who's playing tonight? It's probably blasphemy that I actually can't say off the top of my head. Kentucky's playing, right? Holy shit, we have a whole room of a bunch of communists? Anyway, it breaks my heart that you can turn on a sporting event and you'll see, 40,000 people in there. There's 40,000 people go see the fucking Detroit Tigers or Chicago Cubs or something. And sorry to raise a painful subject. And how many people? It's like there was a great example. This is an example I give quite a bit. I live in far northern California, and when you think of far northern California, what is the first agricultural product you think of? Weed. Yeah. And in California, there's this thing called Prop 215, which means you can have marijuana for personal medicinal use. And the amount you can have is determined county by county. And some counties, like Orange County, which is very conservative, you're allowed to have a maximum of 6 plants. And counties like Del Norte, where I live, you were allowed to have a maximum of 99 plants for personal medicinal use. And there are those who thought that was excessive. And so the county board of supervisors was going to lower the number from 99 down to 6. Board of supervisors, that's what we have in California. That's not they have. That's what the government has in California is board of supervisors. County commissioners, is that what you have here? Who runs the county? But not corporations. Fuck Monsanto. Like, who? Is it commissioners? Yeah, okay. So board of supervisors are county commissioners, same deal. Anyway, so at the board of supervisors meeting that night, they were going to reduce from 99 to 6, and the place was packed. And this is how participatory democracy is supposed to work. That had the supervisors reduced it from 99 to 6, they would have been killed. It was angry marijuana patients and potheads, and you usually think about potheads being really cool and groovy, but don't take away the pot. And okay, so this was wonderful and glorious, an example of participatory democracy. The bad news is that every time these board of supervisors attempt to do something that harms salmon, 3 people show up. I wish that people loved the salmon as much as they love marijuana. So the point is there's a sense in which we do have a democracy of action, in that more people honestly care about the Louisiana State University tigers than care about living, breathing tigers, and more people care about their access to marijuana than care about salmon. I realize it's not a real dichotomy, because you can care about marijuana and salmon too. But the point is that there were people who got off their fucking butts to actually do something, as opposed to for the salmon again. So there's a sense in which I think we really do live in a democracy. If you wanted a revolution in this country, it's pretty simple. You could do one of 2 things. Pop the price of gas up to $10 a gallon. People will be in the street. Could do. Cut off TV. And I'm not saying this about, well, yeah, it's great to cut off TV, but what would happen is it would be the wrong revolution. People would be having a revolution to get the TV. It's like, how dare you take away Dancing with the Stars? You can actually give my family cancer. You can murder the planet I live on, but don't you dare take away Judge Judy. We could actually do a pretty interesting sort of feminist analysis of Judge Judy, by the way. I think one reason for her popularity, I think she represents the crone. She's an older woman who dispenses justice and doesn't take any shit, and I think that she has a large demographic of disempowered women who recognize a sort of... I would love to see Jane Caputi, who's written absolutely great feminist books. I would love to see Jane Caputi do a take on Judge Judy. It's neither here nor there. Okay, anyway, so the plot of Star Wars is that, and that's the point, is everybody in this room, except for you, knows the plot of Star Wars, and how many of us can name 5 species of shellfish who are native to here who have been driven extinct? And I guarantee that there's at least 5 species of mussels who have been driven extinct here. But we can't. We'll get there later. So the plot of Star Wars is... the movie came out, actually, before I get to the plot, and you're already seeing why my books are written in a nonlinear fashion. It came out in 1977, I believe, which was the perfect time for it to come out, for me at least, because I was a sophomore, I believe, in high school, and I remember my friends went to see it. I went to see it. We all just thought it was great. We had to all then tell all of our other friends, oh, my God, this movie is so good, and the acting is so great, you can't even believe it. And, we weren't those nerds who see it 1,000 times or anything. I mean, for one thing, we weren't nerds, and for another thing, we were way too busy playing Dungeons and Dragons. But we...